I'm 42. I live in a quiet suburb outside of St. Paul, Minnesota. I work full-time as a nurse in a memory care facility. Long shifts, heavy hearts. I'm the oldest of 3 kids, the one everyone calls when something goes wrong. The strong one, the one who never says no. Last November, Dad had a stroke. It wasn't his first, but this one knocked him off his feet. He could barely talk, couldn't walk without help. Insurance covered some of it, but not enough for the private rehab center he needed. So, when Mom called asking for help, I didn't even hesitate. I told her to use my emergency card, the one I save for real family emergencies. I gave her the info over the phone that night, standing in the break room at work with microwaved soup in one hand and my phone pressed between my cheek and shoulder. I said, "Only for Dad's treatment, okay? Nothing else." She promised. A week went by, then 2, then 3. No updates from the clinic, no new invoices. So I called them directly. They had no record of my payment. In fact, they said Dad's bills were already paid by someone else. Paid in cash. I thought it was strange. I hung up, and something didn't sit right. So I did what I've never done before. I checked my card statement. And that's when everything cracked open. A $3,800 charge from a resort in Maui, another for airfare, 2 massages, a helicopter tour, all booked within days of that phone call, all under my name. I scrolled down, my thumb shaking. The card wasn't used for rehab. It was used to send my younger sister, Kara, to Hawaii. Kara, the free spirit, the one who's still figuring things out. She's 34, no job, no rent, and apparently no conscience either. I stood there staring at the screen in the middle of my hallway, shoes still on, coat half unzipped. The cold November air from outside still clinging to me. And the worst part? It wasn't even the money. It was the lie. It was knowing my mom, my own mother, looked me in the face, heard the worry in my voice, and still handed my sacrifice over like it was nothing more than a Costco free sample. She gave it to Kara, just like that. And I realized this wasn't about one bad decision. This was the moment I saw everything for what it really was. What I did next wasn't loud, but it changed everything. They always say the oldest child becomes the third parent. I think I became the second. When Kara was still in braces and Micah, our brother, was off chasing a music degree in Chicago, I was working doubles at the diner off Highway 36, coming home smelling like burnt bacon and black coffee. I was 23, newly licensed as an LPN, and instead of moving out or traveling or doing literally anything for myself, I stayed home because Mom was too tired and Dad worked night. I helped pay off the mortgage, quietly. I co-signed Kara's student loan, even though I knew deep down that she'd never finish that photography program in Arizona. And I was right. She dropped out after a year, but somehow still managed a trip to Coachella that spring. When Dad was first diagnosed with early onset dementia, I rearranged my schedule, cut my hours at the hospital to take him to appointments. When he forgot where he was and wandered into the neighbor's yard, I was the one who came home early and made excuses. Holidays, I hosted them, cooked for them, cleaned up after everyone left. I never once complained. When Mom texted me, "Kara's not feeling up to it this year. Can you just bring dinner to her place?" Of course I did. Birthdays, I sent gifts on behalf of all 3 of us. Taxes, I helped Mom and Dad file when Dad started getting confused by the forms. Even after I saved enough for my own apartment, I kept my name on their checking account for emergencies. That's the thing about being the responsible one. Your emergencies are always someone else's priorities. The thing is, no one ever asked how I was doing. Not when I stayed up for 36 hours straight between shifts and caregiving. Not when I used my entire tax refund to fix their leaky roof instead of replacing my car's worn-out tires. Not even when I quietly shelved the idea of grad school because there was just no room. And I didn't ask for thanks. I really didn't. But I guess I hoped that at the very least, they'd honor my boundaries, respect the line when I finally said, only for Dad's treatment. But I see now, they never saw my sacrifices as anything special. They saw them as expected, automatic, like a vending machine. You punch the buttons, and something should just come out. Kara cries, I'm supposed to fix it. Mom worries, I'm supposed to calm her. Micah calls from out of state, I drop what I'm doing. But me? When I cried? When I needed help? Nobody heard it. I remember once, a few years back, when I had the flu so bad I couldn't even stand. I called Mom to ask if she could come bring me some soup or Pedialyte or something. She said, Sweetie, Kara's in town for the weekend, and I just can't right now. I hung up the phone and stared at the ceiling, dizzy, dehydrated, and alone. And still, the next day, I went over to check on Dad. This wasn't just about the Hawaii trip. That was just the match. The gasoline had been building up for years. So when I saw those charges, I didn't scream. I didn't call Mom in a rage or confront Kara on Instagram. I just sat in the silence of all those unseen years and finally understood they never expected me to break. They just assumed I wouldn't. But something had shifted. And this time, I wasn't going to fall back into the same role. This time, I was going to let the silence speak for me. I didn't cancel the card right away. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I waited. Waited for the apology I thought might still come. Maybe Mom would call and say she made a mistake, that she panicked, that Kara manipulated her. But days passed. Silence. Then one evening, I got a group text from Mom. Family brunch this Sunday at Kara's. She's back from her trip and wants to show photos. Photos. From a trip. Bought with the money meant for Dad's care. I stared at the message. My thumb hovered over the screen. And then I did something I had never done in my 42 years. I didn't reply. I didn't go. Sunday came and went. I spent the morning on the back patio with a cup of coffee and no bra on, a quiet rebellion. The breeze was crisp, the trees still clinging to their last golden leaves. I watched the neighbor's kid practice basketball in the driveway and realized this was the first time in months I'd had more than 4 hours of sleep and a morning to myself. Mom called that afternoon. I let it ring. Then she texted, "Are you okay? Kara was upset you didn't come." Not, "We missed you." Not, "I'm sorry." Just a message about Kara, as usual. That night, I pulled out my laptop and removed my name from their joint account, changed the passwords on my bank login, froze the emergency card, not because I couldn't afford another charge, but because I finally realized I shouldn't have to. The next day, Mom showed up at my place. She was holding a Tupperware of French toast casserole. Like, that made everything okay? "I know you're hurt," she started, not even waiting for me to invite her in. "But your sister needed that break. She's been going through so much." I stared at her. She needed a break? And Dad needed rehab. What about what I needed? Mom, what I asked for? She looked uncomfortable, like I was making a scene. Even though I wasn't raising my voice, I wasn't even crying. "You always figure it out," she said quietly, as if that was a compliment. That line hit harder than anything. Like being capable meant I didn't deserve care. That night, I wrote a message. Just a short email. I sent it to both Mom and Kara. "I'm stepping back for a while. This pattern isn't healthy, and I won't participate in it anymore.
Please don't use my name or my finances for anything moving forward. I need space. For myself. I didn't wait for a reply. I didn't need one. Micah called 2 days later. "You just ghosted everyone?" he said, sounding half joking, half accusatory. "No," I said. "I just stopped ghosting myself." There was silence on the line, like he didn't know what to do with that. I didn't try to explain it. I didn't beg to be understood. I'd spent too long explaining myself to people who never really listened. I used to think holding the family together was my job, like it was something noble. But holding everything together while breaking yourself apart, that's not noble. That's just slow self-destruction dressed up as devotion. So no, I didn't yell. I didn't cut them off forever. I didn't burn it all down. I just stopped showing up to be taken for granted.
And that quiet decision, of all things, was what finally made the ground shift beneath them. About a week after I sent the email, I was still getting silence from Mom and Kara. Not even a passive-aggressive emoji. Nothing. Micah sent a few texts, trying to play peacemaker. I didn't respond. Then one evening, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years, Sandra, my old coworker from the hospice center. She was in line at the grocery store, holding a single bouquet of white lilies and a bottle of red wine. "Sandra," I said, blinking. She turned, then gasped. "Oh my God, how long has it been? You look tired," she added, laughing gently like only someone who really sees you would say. We ended up grabbing coffee at the corner cafe down the street, sitting on the patio as the late afternoon sun dipped behind the trees. She asked how things were. I told her everything. She didn't interrupt. She didn't jump to defend anyone. She just listened, with both ears and the kind of silence that doesn't rush to fill pain. When I finished, she exhaled and said, "You know, there's something I learned after my divorce." I looked up. "Being needed," she said slowly, "feels like being loved until you're no longer needed. Then suddenly you see how little love there actually was." That hit me like a truck. I'd been needed for so long. I'd made myself indispensable on purpose because I thought that made me safe, made me important, loved. But Sandra was right. Once I stopped offering, once I pulled back, the love didn't rush in to fill the gap. There were no check-ins, no concern, just silence, like I'd only ever been valued for what I could give. I sat with that for a long time, stirring my cold coffee, watching a leaf fall into Sandra's wine glass. She leaned in. "You're not cold-hearted, you know? You're just waking up. There's a difference." "Sometimes I still feel guilty," I admitted. "That's not guilt," she said. "That's withdrawal. You're detoxing from being the family fixer." I laughed softly, then wiped my eye. It wasn't a sob. It was just a quiet leak of all the years I thought being exhausted meant I was doing something right. Sandra's voice got softer. "Don't let people call your peace distance, and don't let their chaos trick you back into playing their game." I nodded. Then she said something I wrote down later that night and taped to my fridge. "If your love has to hurt you to help them, it's not love. It's a trap." That conversation didn't fix everything. It didn't suddenly make my mom apologize or Kara return the money, but it reframed the entire narrative I'd been living in. For the first time, I saw myself not as the problem or even the solution, but just as a person, deserving of rest, of reciprocity, of love that isn't earned like a paycheck. I walked home that night lighter, not because I was over it, but because I was starting to see through it. Sandra had given me something I didn't know I needed. Not permission to be angry, but permission to be done. Thanksgiving came and went. For the first time in 15 years, I didn't cook, didn't drive across town with green bean casserole and backup Tupperware. I made myself a roast chicken, opened a bottle of wine, and watched It's a Wonderful Life with my phone on Do Not Disturb. And I felt something that surprised me. Not loneliness, relief. I didn't miss the performative gratitude, the family politics, the side glances at Kara's latest business idea. I didn't miss waiting for someone to ask how I was, only to be interrupted by someone else's drama. Christmas was quiet too. I sent a card to Dad at the rehab center. He was finally placed somewhere that accepted his VA coverage after I made a few discreet calls and got the process moving. I didn't involve Mom. Kara never reached out. Micah sent a passive, "hope you're well" text, and I responded with a simple thumbs up. That was it. And yet, I was okay. More than okay. I started painting again, something I hadn't touched since my 20s. My apartment smelled like turpentine and citrus candles. I joined a local rec center, took up beginner yoga, I'm terrible at it, and volunteered one Sunday a month at a foster youth mentoring program. I didn't do it to be useful, I did it because I wanted to. And slowly, I started realizing something. I hadn't lost my family. I just stopped auditioning for a part in someone else's script. The story of the good daughter, the one who sacrifices and saves and smiles through betrayal, I dropped that role. And you know what's wild? The world didn't fall apart. Mom still had brunches with Kara, Micah still played the neutral brother, but me, I finally got to live a life that wasn't about reacting to someone else's chaos. A few weeks ago, I got a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. I think I understand now. About the card. About everything. I'm sorry, honey. I didn't realize how much we leaned on you until you stepped away. I haven't called her back yet. Not out of spite, but because I don't need an apology to justify my peace. Some people need a big confrontation, a dramatic closure. I didn't. I just needed to walk away and mean it. And now I sit on my porch some evenings with a cup of tea, watching the sky turn pink behind the neighbor's maple tree. I've started writing a little. Nothing serious. Just essays, reflections. Maybe someday I'll share them. But for now, I'm just enjoying the quiet. A quiet that isn't lonely. A quiet that feels like freedom. And if I could sum up everything I've learned in one sentence, it would be this. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop letting people use your love to hurt you.